لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
And I remind myself and you of what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would also remind us of when he would say, لا إيمان لمن لا أمانة له ولا دين لمن عهد له. That there is no faith for the person who does not maintain their trusts. And there is no religion for the person who does not maintain their oaths. Before I begin the khutbah today, actually I began it already. I want to call your attention to something, because I think it's very needed. I want us to understand that attending Salat al-Jum'ah is not a fard. It is not something that is compulsory for our bodies if the rest of our minds and our hearts are not going to be present. What does that mean? So if a person thinks that I'm going to just come into the masjid, I'm going to plop myself down, and then I'm going to daydream, or I'm going to play on my phone, or I'm going to talk because maybe I don't understand English, or who knows what. But I'm here, that they have fulfilled the requirement and the objective of Jum'ah, they are wrong. They are severely wrong. They are sinfully wrong. Why? Because it's not just about having warm bodies in the masjid. The Jum'ah is a weekly ibadah that requires us to not just physically be present, but it's to have our minds and our hearts present so that we can learn something. How are we going to learn if we're not going to pay attention? How are we going to learn if we are distracting ourselves and we're distracting others? Whether it's by talking or playing on the phone or whoever is next to us or doodling on the carpet or just going off into La La Land. We have the obligation that when we are attending, regardless of who's speaking, makes no difference whether it's Shpendim or Abdul Halim, makes no difference. The point is that you are supposed to sit down with the intention of knowing that the ibadah is one of you learning. So it doesn't matter what the person looks like, what their clothing is like, how good their English may be, how funny or entertaining they may be. Despite everything, we have an objective to walk away having learned something. And I'll tell you something, that means we have to be active listeners. We can't just be passive and just sit back in the way and think, well, I'm going to get entertained. I'm going to just, allow myself to maybe be inspired if he says something that's going to inspire me. No. You have to be a person that is proactively listening. Imagine that you are now required after you leave here to tell somebody, to teach them about what the khutbah was. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, we wouldn't be sitting here in the same way. Because if somebody were going to tell you, now go ahead in one page, go ahead and summarize what the khutbah was about, you're going to be paying attention in a way that you don't normally do. Why? Because we think that the Jum'ah is one of me just showing up, and that's why some of our brothers and sisters, but especially the brothers, they want to know, what time does the salah start? Why, Habibi? I just want to make sure I can get there for the salah. Allahu Akbar. We think that we can just circumvent the Jum'ah and think that I can just come and make the 2 rak'ahs and alhamdulillah, like everything is good and fine. Brothers and sisters, we have to understand that this religion of ours, it's a way of life that is founded upon the foundation of learning, of knowledge. And the purpose of knowledge is so that we put it into action. We are an ummah of knowledge. We are not an ummah of ignorance. We need to change that, and the only way that's going to change is by us changing ourselves. Let us make sure that every single Jum'ah when you come, or for any lesson that you attend, that you are going to attend understanding it's an act of worship to learn. And you're going to pay attention, and you're going to focus, and you're going to prepare yourself to give a summary to whoever it is. So that when you're going to sit with your family, you're going to sit with brothers and sisters, sit with friends, colleagues, whoever it may be, that you're going to be able to have meaningful conversations. So with that, we're going to, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal, go into the core of the subject. What are we going to be focusing on and talking about? Jazakumullah khair. There's not a day that passes by, brothers and sisters, except that if I'm in a conversation, that if somebody is calling me on the phone, or that they're texting me, or that there's an email, or that there's an appointment, except that there's a recurring theme. What is the recurring theme? It's a word that in the Arabic is referred to as zulm. Some of you may say, what is zulm? Zulm, it is basically wrongdoing, oppressing, transgressing, hurting, injustice. And this is something that unfortunately, it seems like it's an epidemic. Like no one is spared. When there's counseling taking place between brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, the complaints are there, subhanallah. That husbands, among the many ways that they're oppressing and they're committing dhulm with regards to their wives, is that they're not giving their wives attention. But what are they doing? They're surfing, as Sheikh Abdullah Smith, Allah bless him, so correctly coined and termed, they're surfing fitna book, what some of us may know as Facebook. And they're checking out all the different babes that are on there, and from pretty picture to pretty picture to pretty picture. Men, brothers that are married, that have children, are addicted to this type of stuff. That wives, that the husband is not telling her how much he even makes, and he's sending her to go collect government help. Wallahi, things that for us as men, there was a sense of pride, subhanallah, especially when it came to our women. Siblings, Allahul Musta'an, brother with brother. And we read in the Quran what shaitan, Allah protect us from his whispering, how he was able to cause the two sons of Adam alayhi salam to kill, the one to kill his brother. And with that we don't learn. With that we are oppressing and hurting each other in every way that's possible. And if that's with brother and brother, who brothers are, they can fight. Forget about the injustices of brothers towards their sisters. SubhanAllah, our sisters, our women folk that are weak, that are tender. Wallahi, the love that a sister has for a brother, we know that brothers don't have that for their sisters. Sisters who, even though they may perhaps have, and all of us have mistakes, but to be able to understand that, subhanallah, there's got to be compassion. Families. And if this is within our personal life, it's also true within the professional life too. Employees, employers. And this is not just Muslims we're talking about, this is at every single aspect of humanity. Zulm. But as Muslims, we should know better. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal has given us guidance. And wallahi, we know that there's a difference between having guidance and having knowledge, and not having guidance and being ignorant. And the purpose of having this knowledge is so that we are able to make better choices and better decisions consistently in life. Wallahi, if we read the Quran for the purpose of understanding it, we would be fantastic people. If we were to listen and learn from the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wallahi, we would be such blessed people. Imagine this. Imagine this. We are right now experiencing something of Islamophobia, right? And we're complaining about it. It hurts us. We don't like it. None of us likes to be abused. None of us wants to be picked on. None of us wants to see that unfortunately we're being hurt and even killed. But why the hypocrisy that when it comes to each other as Muslims, it's as though it's okay? We don't think that the non-Muslims are aware. Habibi, even if the non-Muslims don't know, Allah knows. Why should we be hypocrites with Allah? Subhanallah. As though it's okay to hurt each other, to say things, to act and to behave and to so on and so forth. But yet when we see something happening from the non-Muslims, or that we ask Allah to forgive us, but yet when it comes to each other, we're still hurting each other by day and by night. There's this beautiful hadith al-Qudusi that Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah has collected, where Allah the Exalted says, Ya ibadi, inni harramtu dhulma ala nafsi وَجَعَلْتُهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. My slaves and my servants, I have forbidden myself, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, I have forbidden myself from committing dhulm with regards to you. So we never have to worry that Allah is going to ever wrong us, that Allah is ever going to oppress us, that Allah is ever going to commit some injustice towards us that is going to harm us. Allah will never do that. And then He's making it clear that that's the standard that He's holding us to. So do not. That's a prohibition. It means it's haram. So do not do that with regards to each other. Husbands and wives, stop it. Parents with your children, stop it. Siblings with each other, stop it. Brothers and sisters in the community, stop it. And when we look at the meaning of dhulm in the Arabic, those three root letters, they have two meanings, and they're so interconnected. The first is aqsu diya'i wa nur, the opposite of darkness, which is light. Pardon me, the opposite of light, which is darkness. The first meaning is darkness, the opposite of light. And the second is وَضْعُ الشَّيْءِ فِي غَيْرِ مَوْضِعِهِ تَعَدِّيًا. It is to do something, to put something in the wrong place, transgressing. SubhanAllah. If we can understand it that way, then we can better understand this teaching in Islam and this hadith, wherein the Prophet ﷺ said, اتقوا الظلم فإن الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Protect yourself from committing this oppression, aggression, injustice. Why? Because on Judgment Day it will be dhulumat. Wronging is going to lead to darkness. Wallahi ahibba, our hearts, if we are not going to make sure that we have surrendered and submitted to Allah subhanahu. And sins are not all the same. It's one thing you commit a minor sin, it's a different thing you commit a major sin, and this is a major sin. It's going to affect your iman. And as the Prophet ﷺ told us, dot after dot after dot, that keeps afflicting the heart. And it's this struggle. This is our own personal jihad that each and every one of us has to have. Our struggle to make sure that we are going to maintain the standard that Allah has given us. And that standard is to make sure we are not going to harm, we are not going to oppress, we are not going to commit injustices towards other human beings. Not just Muslims, but towards other human beings. Why? Because on Judgment Day, wallahi ahibba, that's the day that every one of us is going to run away from their mother, from their father, from their spouse, from their children, from their brother, from their sister, from their friends. It's going to be darkness upon darkness upon darkness. Allah save us. And I remind myself and you what Allah the Exalted tells us because we forget too much. We forget too quickly. He says, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ إِنَّمَا يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِيَوْمٍ تَشْخَصُ فِيهِ الْأَبْصَارُ. And never think that Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers are doing. He only delays them for the day when the eyes are going to stare with horror. Ya ibadallah, ask Allah for guidance, for forgiveness. Fix your situation with Allah Azza wa Jalla and with each other before it's too late. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Wallahi, we should be so proud, so grateful to Allah Azza wa Jalla for being Muslims. Because the guidance that we have that helps us to be the best human being possible, it is guidance that if it was not for Allah who has blessed us to be Muslims, we could be part of the other 6 billion people that are out there that don't know any better. We should be so grateful to Allah the Exalted for giving us the opportunity to be in a time when Islamic knowledge is so readily available, such that we did not have to travel hundreds of miles on foot through the harshest of climates and terrain, facing the most dangerous of hazards along the way so that we can learn. Wallahi, we have so much to be grateful to Allah for. Allah, clear our hearts of everything that makes us so ungrateful. Allahumma ameen. Some of us may say, what can I do? What can I do? I can only do something for myself. I can do the best with regards to myself. I can't do anything with regards to anyone else. SubhanAllah, listen to this sunnah guidance from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith is in Bukhari, wherein he said sallallahu alaihi wasallam, unsur akhaka zaliman aw mazluma. He said, help your brother, support him. If he is oppressing, also if he is oppressed. فقال رجل منهم يا رسول الله أنصره إذا كان مظلوما فكيف أنصره إذا كان ظالما. He said, oh Messenger of Allah, I will be there to help him and to support him if he's being oppressed, but how am I supposed to help him and support him when he's oppressing? Right? I mean, it's not like you're going to help him continue to oppress and to do wrong. So how are you supposed to help him? And I'm sure that many of us may have that thought. What am I supposed to do? The Prophet ﷺ said, تَحْجِزُهُ أو تَمْنَعُهُ مِنَ الظُّلْمِ. SubhanAllah. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ نَصْرَهُ. That you prevent them and you stop them from the wrongdoing. That's how you're going to help them. So brothers and sisters, we need to understand we have an obligation with Allah Azza wa Jal to be supporters of what is correct and what is right. If we see that between husband and wife there is something of a problem and you happen to be the parent of one of them, don't just take sides with regards to your child because it's your child. You need to be as just as you can for Allah and listen to see what the problem is. And if it is your son or your daughter that is wrong, that you tell them, my son, my daughter, this is wrong what you're doing. Allah Azza wa Jal does not like that. That's not what the Prophet ﷺ so beautifully showed us. When it comes to siblings and the problems within families, that we don't just say, whatever, I don't want to get involved. What do you mean you don't want to get involved? How are you going to allow your brother to continue to harm or your sister to continue to harm another brother and sister when the Prophet ﷺ is commanding us in this hadith? Unsur. Unsur is a command. And the command means it's mandatory. You can't pretend you're deaf, dumb, and blind and just, I don't want to know. SubhanAllah. You need to tell them. Brother, sister, Allah Azza wa Jal does not like that. He has made such things haram. How much effort does it take to say something? Wallahi, it takes a tremendous amount of effort. Why? Because it's about willpower. And it's about Iman. But if you truly love your brother and sister, if you truly love one another, you're going to want to stop each other from doing the acts that are going to cause us to go to hell. You're going to genuinely care. You're going to genuinely care. And this is what's missing with us. That compassion, we don't care. We are an ummah of rahmah. And somehow or the other, it's gotten lost. Because what is zulm except that is the opposite of rahmah? Yeah, somebody may say it's the opposite of adl. It is. But wallahi, if you're going to have compassion and kindness, you're not going to do anything that's unjust and wrong and oppressive and hurtful. It's the opposite. Jama'at al-Muslimin, we don't have a choice in this. We have an obligation to do our best. And if we don't, I'll end it with this warning that Allah the Exalted, He states in Surah Al-Shu'ara, wherein He ends the ayah in the surah saying, وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. And those who commit zulm, who wrong and hurt and oppress and commit these injustices, are going to know for sure what kind of return they're going to have when they will be returned back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. I pray that Allah subhanahu guide our hearts and purify our hearts and our minds and our souls before it's too late. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. كما صليت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم ربنا آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها Allahumma bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Ya Allah, we ask you all that is good in this life and the best of paradise in the hereafter. And we seek protection with you from all that is painful in this life and from the least of punishment in the hereafter. Ya Allah, we ask you that you purify our minds, that you purify our hearts, that you purify our souls, that you purify our speech and actions. Ya Allah, we ask you that you guide us to the best of character and to the strongest of faith. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you help us to be from your best slaves and servants. Ya Allah, we ask you that you prevent us from hurting and harming each other. Ya Allah, we ask you that you guide us so that we can be role models for each other. Ya Allah, we ask you that you bless us to be true representatives of Islam. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you expand our hearts such that we can easily forgive each other. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you truly bless us to love each other for your cause. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you help us to truly trust each other and to work together for all that is correct and pleasing to you. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you protect us from these rising trends of Islamophobia. Ya Allah, and that you help us from hurting each other. Ya Allah, we ask you for all of our brothers and sisters that have been killed, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and that have died, that you forgive them all. Ya Allah, that you accept from them all of their good deeds. Ya Allah, that you make their grave a garden from the gardens of paradise, and that you bless them with the best of paradise in the hereafter. Ya Allah, that you're there to support their families and to console them during these hard times. Ya Allah, and for our brothers and sisters that are injured and that are ill, Ya Allah, that you protect them, that you heal them, Ya Allah, and that you make their recovery complete and speedy. Ya Allah, and that you make their scale of good deeds heavy for them and for their loved ones that are caring for them. Ya Allah, we ask you that you bless us all with patience. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you guide us all, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you, Rabbil Alameen, that you truly help us to live as the best of your servants, and that when our time comes, you help us to have a good ending, you bless us to die in a good state. Ya Allah, and that you return us to you being well pleased with us. Allahumma ameen. Wa qumu ila salatikum yarhamuni yarhamukum Allah.